In this brief introduction to EViews, we will begin by looking at the parts of the program. When you start EViews, you will see a startup screen. All the action from the startup screen can be found in the menus. EViews comes in several editions, and I am using the free Student Lite version. In its default state, EViews main window is divided into two parts: the command window and the work area. The work area will contain, well, the stuff you work with in EViews. Most importantly, the work area will contain one or more workbooks. A workbook will contain data and results which you can save to the computer. More on workbooks later on. You have two choices when working with EViews. You can either use the menu system or you can type commands in the command window. Beginners often find the menu system easier, while the more advanced users often find it quicker to use the command window. If you don't use the command window, you can auto hide it. At the bottom, you have the path, the starting point of file open. If you're working with a database, then DB displays the name of the database. WF displays the name of the work file you are currently working on. In most cases, you will begin by opening an existing work file, or you will create a new work file by importing data from an external source, for example from Excel. However, there are some pedagogical points in creating a new work file from scratch. To do that, go to File, New Work File. The first thing to point out is that a work file always contains one or several pages. Pages allow you to organize a large work file into logical entities, similar to how you organize an Excel document into sheets. A page in EViews can be structured in one of several ways. When you create a new work file, you have three choices. Your page can be unstructured and undated, which is useful if you're working with cross-sectional data. For example, individual data, firm data, data for countries, and so on. If you are working with time series data, then dated regular frequency is typically the structure you need. Finally, you can work with panel data, cross-sectional data, which is observed over time. Next, you can name your work file and your page if you like. Let's name our work file 1, and the page I will name page 1. The second part is dependent on which structure you choose for your page. If you choose unstructured, then the only thing you have to submit is the number of observations. A dated page will have a specific frequency, annual, monthly, daily, and so on. It will also have a start date and an end date. Finally, if your page is structured as a panel, then you need to set the number of cross-sections in addition to the time structure of your data. Let's create the simplest type, a work file with an unstructured, undated page with 6 observations. EViews will create a window representing the work file and position it in the work area. You can see the name of the page here, and you can see the name of the work file here and here. Once you have a work file, you will also have an entirely new menu specifically designed for the work file. There is a lot of overlap between this menu and the overall EViews menu at the top. You will learn more about both menus throughout the course. You can add pages to your work file by clicking New Page. A new page does not need to have the same structure. For example, my first page could be unstructured, while my second page could be dated with a yearly frequency. Here I have created page 2 with range from 1998 to 2017. Going back to page 1, you can see that the range is going from observation number 1 to observation number 6, a total of 6 observations. You can change the range simply by double-clicking it, or by going to Proc, Structure, Resize Current Page. In EViews, there is an important distinction between the range and the sample. The range is all your data, while the sample can be all the data or a subset of the data. The default setting is that the sample is the same as the range. However, in many cases we need to do analysis on a subset of the data. For example, if I have data on American firms, I may want to do my analysis including all firms, as well as by including only firms registered on Nasdaq. If I have time series data, I may want to do analysis on the entire time period, and I may want to do analysis by considering smaller specific periods of time. You can change the sample by double-clicking it or by going to proc set sample. The at all means that the sample is equal to the range. If I want to restrict my sample, say to observations 1 through 3, I simply type 1 space 3. The if condition is used to restrict the sample using our data. For example, I can use the if condition to restrict my sample to only firms registered on Nasdaq. More on this later. Let's reset the sample to at all. One important point in EViews is that a page in a work file contains a collection of objects, and the area below the range and the sample displays all the objects in the page. These objects will be your data, your econometric results, your tables and graphs, and more. When you create a new work file or page, you get 2 objects for free, coefficients named C and a series named resid, short for residuals, which cannot be renamed or removed. I will get back to these 2 objects when we talk about the equation object later in the course. You can create a new empty object in a page by clicking Object, New Object, or by right-clicking selecting New Object. A second important point in EViews is the following. Every object in EViews must be of a certain type. There are close to 30 different types in EViews, and I will cover 2 of them in this lecture. I will cover the series type and the group type. The most important type, however, is the equation type, which is covered throughout the course. You can learn more about the object types in the object reference, a document that you will find under Help PDF Docs. This document is organized by type. Here you find all the details about the series type, the equation type, and so on. Let's begin with the series type by creating a new object of this type. I will name it Series 1. Series 1 is now my 3rd object in page 1. The icon to the left of Series 1, which is supposed to be a tiny line graph, tells us that this is an object of type series. Resid is another object of type series, while the coefficient C is an object of another type, the coef type, short for coefficients. To learn more about the object Series 1, double-click it. Series 1 is displayed in a spreadsheet. We have 6 rows consistent with the range of this page. NA means that we do not yet have any data for Series 1. If I create Series 1 in page 2, then a spreadsheet consistent with the time series structure of this page is created. Getting back to page 1, you see that we have a menu for Series 1. This menu is type dependent. If you open an object of a different type, then you will get a different menu. For example, opening the coefficient C reveals the menu for this specific type. However, all objects of the same type will always have the same menu. The first thing I want to show you when you work with an object of type series is the edit button. The edit button is an on-off button. Clicking it once will allow you to edit Series 1. Let's do, for example, 5, 3, 2, 2, 3, 5. And we now have some actual data in our Series 1. Let's close edit. Everything you do with an object is automatically saved on the page. So if I close Series 1 and I open it again, my new data is all there. I will not cover everything there is to say about objects of type series in this lecture. However, I want to point out a few things. If you click View followed by Graph, you see the graph options. Without making any changes, clicking OK will give you a line graph. To get back to the spreadsheet, you do View Spreadsheet. I also want to point out Descriptive Statistics and Tests, Stats Table, which will give you summary statistics such as sample mean, sample standard deviation, and so on. Let's create a second series, which I will name Series 2. A nice feature is that you can paste data that you have copied from Excel into this worksheet. I copy my data from Excel and I paste it by right-clicking or by using Ctrl+V. An object of type series can only have one column in EViews. That is, each series can only represent a single variable. If you want to include several series into one object, you need to create a group. Let's first create an empty group. Click Object, New Object, and select Type Group. I call this group Group 1. The icon for objects of type group is a capital G. My group is completely empty. I can now add data manually, or I can paste data from Excel. Here I'm simply pasting some data from Excel. Note how EViews automatically gives names to each column and how it creates one series for each column. If I close my group, I can open a single column from my group. Any changes I make in this series will be updated in the group. Let's change just one element of my first column, close it, open group 1, and we can see the change in group 1. Changes made in the group will also be updated to the individual series. If you, in the group, go to View, select Group Members, you can see the series that are included in this group. I can remove the series by selecting them both using, for example, Ctrl+A, right-clicking, selecting Remove. This will not remove the series from the work file, only from the group. I now again have an empty group, which will allow me to show you a second way that you can create a group from existing series. Select Series 1 and 2 by clicking on Series 1, holding down the Ctrl key and clicking on Series 2. Now you can simply drag them to the group. There is a slightly quicker way of creating a group from existing series. Select your series, right-click and select Open and select as a group. You typically want to name this group, otherwise it will be deleted whenever you close it. The group object will allow you to do analysis and other work which require 2 or more variables. For example, if you have a group containing at least 2 series, you can create a scatter plot. Go to View, Graph, and select Scatter. You can also create a line graph with both series. Click Line and OK. From a group, you can also find sample covariances and sample correlations. Go to View, Covariance Analysis, and select, for example, Covariance. The final thing I want to show you is how to create a work file from an Excel file. Simply drag the Excel file into EViews. You need to go through a couple of steps to create the work file, but in most cases EViews is pretty clever and you can simply click Finish to get your work file. EViews will ask you if you want to link imported series and alpha objects to the external source. First, alpha objects are non-numerical data. If you say yes, then any changes that you make in Excel will be updated in EViews. And the most common choice here is to select no. This was a very short introduction to EViews. There is obviously a lot more to say, but this video is already long enough.